Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Barrett Louie, and I'm a member of the marketing team here at RiskIQ, and we are thrilled that you could join us for today's workshop. Today, we'll be exploring methodologies for threat analysis, walk through use cases, and work through hands-on exercises. Before we get started, there are a couple housekeeping notes. First, today's workshop is being recorded. Second, today's session will be interactive. Throughout the workshop, we'll be unmuting lines for questions and conversation. If you have a question while your line is muted, please send them through the questions window in the GoToWebinar control panel. The team will answer as many as we can as we go. Now, let me introduce you to today's team that's here to support you. First, Benjamin Powell. He is RiskIQ's technical marketing manager and will be leading today's workshop. Next, there are several folks here to help answer questions you may have. Caroline Yoon is a RiskIQ solution architect. Kate Gibbs is our Northeast Enterprise Account Executive. And Jacqueline Witter is our Senior Events Manager. At any point, if you have questions or have any challenges, reach out and we'll do our best to help you right away. Now that you've met the team, I'll hand it over to Benjamin.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. This is our first worldwide virtual threat hunting class. We usually do these in person, so we're trying a new format. Please give us some feedback so we can find out how things are going. I'm going to ask poll questions throughout the exercises to find out things about you, so then when I show you examples or we walk through use cases, I can cater them to your viewpoint on security and try to make sure that I address all the types of things you might be thinking about. So let me get started here. So the first thing that I want to make sure is that the exercises that we're going to be using today are real. So this is real data. And with that, there comes risk. So I want to make sure you don't visit these sites directly in your browser. So make sure that we're using tools that the tool goes out there and sees the site and then gives you the data back. So then you have a buffer between you and the threat actor. And there's a couple reasons for that. If you're doing an investigation, if you start to look at a bad guy and they see that you're looking at them, they can block your traffic. Also, you can get infected. So you want to be sly about this. You want to be, you want to hide your presence that you're actually investigating somebody. Or if you're a penetration testing person, you want to make sure that they don't know what you're doing, so then you can be successful in your engagement. So the tools that we're going to be using today is not just RiskIQ's tools. We're going to be using other tools, and you might have your own as well that you might want to use. But I have all the links here. I'm going to copy and paste these links into the chat window so you can open them right away. So the first one's RiskIQ PassiveTotal. So you might have a paid version, you might have the free version. So the view might be a little bit different depending on if you're free or paid. Some things might not show up. So I'll go through the differences and show you that. So other things that we're going to be doing is like the Google Safe Browsing check to check the blacklist with Google. RiskIQ, if we mark something as bad, Google and Microsoft take that and put it into production within 10 to 15 minutes. 95% of the world's browsers won't go there, but then it takes time to take that offline. It could take, for us, 1 to 4 days to work with that ISP and hosting provider to take that off. The other thing that we're going to be using is URL Scan.io to actually see an image of the site and maybe look at some scripts that might be there. Hybrid analysis as well we'll be using, and VirusTotal. So we'll be using all those tools. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly open up my text file and give you that information. Just take 1 second. I'm going to go into the chat. Give me a second, and I'm going to paste this in. So now you have all those links. So you can just click on them. And what I'm going to do is when we do exercises, I'm going to give you the initial search so you don't make a mistake and do a typo. So you can go right in to make your life a little bit easier. So we also have a resource page. So riskiq.com/threat-hunting-resources. Whenever we come up with new use cases, I usually record them, have a step-by-step guide. So for example, we'll be going and doing a payment card skimming investigation. So there'll be a step-by-step guide that you can go back and see. And even recordings will be up here as well of the actual scenario. So then you can actually go back and rewatch these if you like to. So I'll be referring back to this throughout the exercises. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump back into my slides, show you a couple things, introduce myself a little bit more, and then we'll make sure that you're all set up inside of the RiskIQ PassiveTotal application. So we're going to also give you the code that you got today is a 1-day promo code. So this will give you unlimited queries for today. During next week, you'll be contacted, and we'll give you at the end of today, we'll give you a 1-week promo code, and then during next week, we'll contact you to give you an extended promo code so you can really try out the enterprise features and be set up to see all of the functionality that you get with enterprise. And we'll set you up with an organization for your company, so please sign up with a corporate email account, and then you'll be able to share intel with all of your internal colleagues with the full enterprise version. Okay. So what I'd like you to do is go out to community.riskiq.com and log in. If you haven't registered, please register, and we have a promo code. And I'm going to show you where that promo code goes in if you've already have an account and you couldn't enter it because you've already registered. If we take that promo code and we go to RiskIQ, so I'm just going to now open up another tab. I'll log into community, and I'll show you where that promo code goes. So up in the upper right-hand corner, there's a little symbol for your account. And if you go into account settings, inside the account settings, you'll see this promo code section right here. And if you click on that little pencil next to it, you can paste in the promo code. And once you do that, you should see about 26,000 queries in a day you'll be able to do. So that should be more than enough to be able to do it. But you'll also get API access. So if you're using Maltego or other things where you want to try out our API, the information will be there as well, the secret and the information you need to put into those other applications. Okay, so while you're doing that, I'm going to do our first poll question. I want to find out where everyone is, where you're coming from today. So we're going to launch this poll question. Are you coming from North America, EMEA, APAC, Latin America? Just want to know so I can cater some of the investigations that we might do. We might change some stuff up on the fly. I love that we have some people from other parts of the world, not just North America. So we'll see that in just a minute. Okay, poll's closed. And Barrett, do we have the results for those? Here they come. Okay, so about 88% North America, 6% EMEA, APAC, and a little bit from APAC and Latin America. Well, wonderful. We have over 140 people in right now, so that's great. So wonderful. Okay, so we'll go back and let's get started. Okay. So I hope everybody has your promo code in. If you don't, please chat with us, and we have some people that can help you get that promo code installed. Okay, so let me give you some fun facts about me. I'm Benjamin Powell. I live in San Diego, and one of the things is that I love spearfishing. But when I tell people in our industry, yeah, my hobby is spearfishing, they kind of look at me weird and no longer take my emails. But I actually go out in the ocean and catch fish. So I've worked in IT for over 30 years, running network operations, security operations, and then went over to a company called ExcelOps, and Fortinet purchased them. I helped found that company and it became the 40 SIM. I've worked in computer security most of my life, and now with RiskIQ, it's like a SIM on the internet. Everything exposed is out there, and the abilities that we have are pretty incredible. I've worked in financial institutions, manufacturing, biotech, education, Port of San Diego International Airport. So I have a lot of experience with different types of scenarios. So that's why I try to show things that are real and you'll experience over your lifetime. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to look at two websites, and we're going to see which one is legit and which one is fake. And by training your eye and seeing these things all the time, it gives you the capability of really discerning what is good and what's bad. But until you see it, sometimes you don't recognize it. So that's why we love doing these threat hunting workshops. I started these about 4 years ago at Sands in the evening. After people went and attended sessions, we'd give out beer and pizza, and I would teach people how to threat hunt, investigating publicized attacks. So that's how we started this. So now this has evolved over the years. So I tried to pick some ones that will help you in discerning good and bad. Payment card skimmers are very active right now that everybody's remote. And we've just launched exposed services. So if you have the enterprise version, you'll get an additional tab if you search an IP to see the exposed services and the information we get back in the banner. So that will be available there. Now, the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show how to look at open source intelligence a new way. We have a partnership with CrowdStrike, and what I like to do is to show you how you can look at an article, and then when you do those queries, you can see if that affects you or not. You can say, did anybody internally go out to one of these bad IOCs? So it will give you another way of viewing inside and outside information to see it really affects your organization. So that's what I have planned, but we can change this on the fly if questions come up and people like to see different types of things that we can do. So we'll make this interactive. So give me a quick second. Okay, so RiskIQ, over 85,000 security professionals use PassiveTotal to look at their attack surface, discover unknowns, and investigate threats. So what I'm going to do is, instead of showing you some slides, I created a little 2-minute video that explains what we do. And I want to play this right now. As attack surfaces grow outside the corporate firewall, cybersecurity teams need to be able to do two things well at scale: discover unknowns and investigate threats across their organization's digital presence. With attack surfaces expanding quicker and more radically than ever before, and the threat landscape growing along with them, organizations need proactive threat detection that sees their entire digital presence for what it really is, and as importantly, never takes a break. For more than 10 years, RiskIQ has been crawling and absorbing the internet to define the web's composition so we can show customers how they and the attackers targeting them fit inside it. Most organizations' attack surface is unknown to IT teams. It's an in-house shadow IT, assets created by third parties, and assets spun up by threat actors that are purpose-built to attack their businesses, employees, and customers. RiskIQ threat detection is unique because it alerts security teams to all of it. RiskIQ maintains a complete inventory of a customer's internet-exposed digital assets and issues alerts as soon as someone in the company stands up something new, or something becomes vulnerable, or something changes that could indicate a compromise, such as a JavaScript on a web page. With our internet-wide visibility, we also alert customers as soon as threat actor stands up a rogue infrastructure targeting them. For example, a typo squatted domain, phishing pages leveraging their logos, malicious mobile apps, and more. While simulating the actions of real users, RiskIQ's global virtual users network continuously extracts, analyzes, and assembles internet data from the entire IPv4 space, covering more ground than any other platform. As we accumulate this data, our proprietary systems are continuously updating each customer's unique intelligence graph and alerting them immediately as vulnerabilities and threats traverse it. By continuously monitoring the entire web at scale with RiskIQ, organizations can reduce personnel resources, improve accuracy, and minimize costs. RiskIQ's unique visibility detects threats and malicious behaviors designed to elude security scanners, such as malware injection, sophisticated website defacement, DNS hijacking, and domain ownership hijacking. By illuminating what were formerly blind assets, RiskIQ allows security teams to put policies against them and gain control. This inventory also helps vulnerability management programs and penetration testing teams to know which assets to evaluate. RiskIQ's proprietary instrumentation and algorithms bring an organization's entire attack surface together in one pane of glass. All you need is an internet connection. Continuous encoding, security research, and analysis by RiskIQ's teams of data scientists and threat researchers enable detection of the latest threats targeting businesses. Quick, accurate detection enables fast remediation and proactive blocking of attacks. Over 85,000 security experts rely on RiskIQ to safeguard their global digital attack surface with visibility and control beyond the firewall. Leveraging our solutions, powered by unmatched internet-scale data, our customers discover unknowns and investigate threats. Okay. So instead of me showing you a bunch of slides, I had created that just a week or two ago. So I want to explain, why we're doing the things that we do real quick. So some of the images that you saw in there are from our enterprise global inventory digital footprint product, where we actually take the internet and show you your piece of the internet, and then we can monitor it for changes and show you what you have, what you didn't know that you had that was really yours, and then what is rogue or bad that's trying to impersonate you or attack you. So we have to simulate like real users do. So we actually present cookies, do searches, go out and grab the full document object model, execute all the code on like a client. So sometimes malicious JavaScript or something might get put into your site and you don't know it, and then it only executes when it comes down to the client. So we're able to see that. Now we also go out through a global proxy network around the world, and the reason for that is, if we started our scanning from our corporate data center, the threat actors get smart and go, just block the traffic from there, and now you can't see us anymore. So we have to act just like the threat actor. So if they put things in place to block us, we have to go around them and find out ways to get there. We don't just go and grab everything on the page. We actually do from many different places and piece the data together. But we have that full document object model, all the links, the console messages, the headers, the dependent requests, all the files. So the one thing that makes us unique at RiskIQ is that, let's say you had a SIM or a firewall or content filter, and you put up a rule. It's from that point forward. But RiskIQ, because we have all that data and we've collected it ourselves, if we find a piece of data that can highlight an entire attack, for example, cookies, we can go back to the beginning of time, 10 years, and every day we can go back and pull a new data set out of our stored data and create something new. So then we can go back in history and look at that. So that's unique, that no one else in the world has, but it's from all the stuff that we've collected. So we go and we crawl the entire IPv4 space, over 220 different ports, over 150 countries, and we source from residential, commercial, and mobile IP space because the threat actors might be targeting a specific region, country, device, and we emulate all of those browsers and devices and operating systems. So we act like the intended victim. We act like your parents online to be able to go out there and find all this bad stuff. So with that, we have terabytes of passive DNS. We do over 2 billion HTTP requests a day. We're currently mapping over 157 billion relationships across the internet. So because we pull down that document object model, we know what comes in and what goes out of every website in the world, all over the internet. So once you find that one shred of piece of data, let's say that malware, then we can say, oh, that malware had this IP address and this SSL cert, but that cert is also on this other domain, and that domain has another IP address, and there's a tracking cookie there, or there's some sort of thing that we can now link and get this infrastructure chain of all of the pieces. So from that one piece of data, we can illuminate the entire infrastructure going back 10 years and be able to show it all together and show how things changed over time. So by us doing that, we can now go back even historically and say, when did the site get compromised? When did the site get fixed? When did this version of vulnerability exist in systems, and how quickly did it change over time? We're able to do all that. And I just want everybody to know the promo code is on every slide that I'll be showing today in the bottom left-hand corner. So if you come in late and you need that promo code, you can add it at any time that you need to. So as we go in and we look at the services, the phishing, we get the DOM, the passive DNS, the IP address that was responding to that domain at that particular time, cookies, we bring that all into a single global inventory. So when our customers look at, we have this big map of the internet, and then we show them their piece of it. We see over 250,000 new domain resolutions every day. There's over 5.5 million new host resolutions that we're actually going out there and understanding and gathering. Over 106 billion unique DNS records, over 300,000 new port observations a day we're seeing, and we even have a huge mobile app store. We have over 34 million mobile apps that have been downloaded and checked and categorized. We have all that information. So when that comes in, because we're gathering this data, we have traditional data sets that you're normally used to, like Whois and passive DNS and things like that. But then we create our own data sets that are unique to RiskIQ, like host pairs, what came and what went out of the website, the web components that we see there, the trackers, the little bits of codes, Google Analytic codes, cookie IDs, things like that, mobile apps. But then we can create things like blacklists and phishing lists and zero-day lists, and accomplice list means that you're hosting something that might be bad. So we can say, hey, this website is bad because they're hosting phishing or they were compromised. So we have all these things that are available to you that you normally might not see with just PassiveTotal. So when you think about the cyber kill chain that we all grew up with, we focus our time and attention outside the firewall. And it's more relevant today than any time before because we're all remote right now. So all those safeguards that we spent to protect us while we're inside the organization, we're all outside. So when you think about how an attack starts, they might start with discussions on the deep and dark web. They might talk about, hey, do you have any compromised hosts in this organization? And then they might buy a domain, then they park it. So it might be typo squatted. But then once they put your logos on there and make it email capable, it's capable of domain infringement or a phishing campaign. And then the attack happens. So usually when you see it, all that stuff has already happened. So RiskIQ can usually see it 1 to 4 days before it's live, before it's affecting you. And if we put it on our blacklist within 15 minutes, 95% of the world's browsers can't go there. You get the red pop-up, do you really want to go there? And then we can take our time to take it down. It takes 1 to 4 days to work with those people hosting it to take it down, or have the lawyers get involved to remove it for you. So what we want to do is we want to go earlier in the kill chain to make it easier for you to discover unknowns that you might have, those vulnerabilities or those bad things, and then to investigate all of the pieces to get everything to be able to eliminate that threat completely from your organization that could affect your users or customers. So we even monitor it after it's closed. So if the threat comes back, we mark it as tenacious. Hey, it came back, and then we immediately put it on the blacklist and we take it down again. So it's like whack-a-mole, but we automate it and we can do that for you. Okay. So the good thing about the internet is that we all play on the same battlefield. Okay, we all play in the same field, and everything we do emits signals. Whether it's your phone connected to an access point, Bluetooth that you might have. It might be the emails that you're sending. And if you're there and you're capturing those signals, you can do something with it. So what RiskIQ is doing is gathering those signals all the time from the internet. But you have to also remember that there's always gaps in signals. If I check a website right now and then they update it and I don't check it till tomorrow and they change it back, I'll never see that change. So there's always gaps in analysis. So we always say that you need 3 solid analytical leads to really make a good determination to say if this was good or not, because then you have several points of proof to show you that this is really good or not, or it's bad. So let's go through a little scenario. So if I have a threat actor and I have a targeted user, these are some of the signals that you could potentially get. And these are things that you can be doing internally to be able to understand these things. So the threat actor, they're in Brazil. They have an IP address, a net block, autonomous system number, ISP, just from going online. When they compose their email, we know the email provider, there's a subject, the email body, attachments, there's a language, a date and time. When they send it, it now traverses the internet. We get the transit IP addresses, the net blocks, the transit times, the autonomous system numbers that went through, and then it gets to the user, the targeted user. And from there, when they read the email, they will be able to understand, maybe there's some code in there, HTML that responds back so they can fingerprint the machine. They can understand the operating system. They know their location, geolocation information. So there's all that type of stuff that bleeds out. So that's kind of what RiskIQ is doing, is we're grabbing all this stuff, piecing it together for you. So if you need to start your investigation, you don't need to gather all these things and link everything together. It's already ready and willing and able to answer all those questions for you. So we have the passive DNS, the who is information, the certificates, the trackers, the host pairs, the host details, the cookies, the hashes, open source intelligence. The open source intelligence is a paid Google search where we look for what you were searching for in our product against some security blogs and vendors to gather that information and make it easier for you to find. We have the full document object model. It's not available inside of PassiveTotal, but in our enterprise products, the digital footprint product, you can see those. The headers, the console logs, open ports, and the exposed services is the newest thing. So I just mentioned this about the gaps in analysis. So let's go through and let's do a search together. So what I like to do is, when I do this, I want to have somebody on the line with me, so then I can talk and I can ask them questions and I can say, well, what do you think about that or that? Do we have any volunteers that I can get somebody? So please put somebody in the chat saying, hey, I'll volunteer. I'd love to walk through a scenario with you together. So I'll give you guys a second to see if we can get a volunteer. It'll make it really nice. And if you volunteer, I will get you a extended promo code for 60 days. So you'll be able to use the enterprise product for 60 days. So if you volunteer, it'll be worth it for you in your organization if you volunteer. Okay, I'm checking the chat. Okay, we have Ken. So can somebody unmute Ken?
Yep, working on it. Give me 1 second.
Okay. Thanks, Ken.
Unmuted. Hi.
Hey, Ken. Thank you for volunteering today.
Not a problem.
So Ken, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the query and then we'll talk through it. So then you don't have to show your screen or anything. So these are the tools that we're going to be using today: PassiveTotal and Google Safe Browsing, URL Scan.io, hybrid analysis, and VirusTotal. Okay, so we're going to try to determine something if it's legitimate it's a real website, it's like above board, or if it's bad and potentially malicious. So
Okay.
there's two websites that we're going to look for. Okay, one of them is assets.nflxext.com, and the other one is netflx18-account05.com. And we're going to look at these two. And these are, one of them's bad. So don't go there directly to these websites. So remember, this is bad. So I'm going to paste this into my chat, the chat for everybody, so you can see this. So these are the two websites that we're going to look at. So I'm going to the chat now, and I'm going to paste this in so everybody sees it. So the first one we're going to do is the assets.netflix.com. And while we go through this, Ken, so are you familiar with RiskIQ? Have you used this before, or?
Yeah, I've used it partially with my organization.
Okay.
But after some time, when I tried to go back into the login, I don't know if it was a trial promo they gave to us or a full version, but later on I wasn't able to get access into it, so I just stopped.
Okay. So Ken, let's go through this one together. So I'll explain what we see on the screen, and my screen might look different than other people because I have the paid PassiveTotal professional edition. So this is the enterprise PassiveTotal. And there's some additional things that you might see. For example, if you ran this query on your own and you don't have the paid version, this analyst insights are questions that come up from threat investigators all the time that we try to answer for you to say, hey, you might need to look at this or that. This might be good, might be bad. So it helps you answer those types of questions. The next section is the heat map, and this is showing 6 months worth of data at any time. And with that, you'll see a curve on the top and a curve on the bottom. The curve on the top is the beginning of a month. The curve on the bottom is the beginning, is the end of the month. So you can go in there, and in IT, we always get people coming up days, weeks, months later and saying, hey, we had this problem, can you take a look at it? But it's hard sometimes to get that frame of reference to say, okay, I only want to look at this particular period of time. But with RiskIQ, I can come in, if I select one day, I only see those things. But if I hold the shift key down, I can select and show in a range of days. And then it filters the results to show me those things. And then if I want to see everything, I just click back on the graph again on the bottom that shows me all the data that we've collected. And now it resets my view. So I can filter that. Now, if we take a look at these resolutions, okay, I can see that if I take a look at the resolutions tab, I can see the IP addresses that were responding. And right now there's currently 2 IP addresses. And if there's ever one in the upper right-hand corner, a little triangle, that means we saw something new on that day. So if I look here and we're looking at potentially a Netflix, which one is real, which one's fake. If I go to the ASN, it says Netflix streaming service. So that kind of gives me some information that, hey, this might be legitimate. Now, the WHOIS information, let's take a look at the WHOIS information and see what does it tell us. Now, if you have the free version, you might not see the history that's over on the left. So if I go back in time, I can go back to 2013 and I can see it's Netflix Los Gatos, that's where Netflix is, and look at the current record and see, okay, they're using Mark Monitor for monitoring their WHOIS records, okay? The certificates can give you some good information because if it's a free certificate offering, then that's kind of strange if Netflix is using, let's say, Let's Encrypt instead of using a paid certificate organization. So we see here that it's really Netflix. Now, what are some other things that you would do, Ken, when you're looking at something to see, hey, if it's legitimate or not? What would you look at?
I will look at, mostly I look at the IPs. I try to do a resolving of the IPs to map out if it is coming from Netflix. I try to do a trace out.
Okay.
Trace out on the IP. So if it results back to the actual company, it means that it is actually the legit company. Sometimes when I look at the URL, if I say something missing within the URL, it gives me a red flag, and I try to investigate more.
Okay, so like the subdomains, that's a really good point. So if we take a look at the subdomains, I can see that I have CDN, that could stand for like Content Delivery Network, Codex, which is involved in encoding. So yeah, you're absolutely right. So all of those things are good indicators to look at. The other thing that I like to look at are looking at things like the relationships, the host pairs, what's coming in, what's going out. And this is something that RiskIQ has that's unique with. So if I look at Netflix.com, it's reaching out to assets.netflix.com to grab information, okay? So that tells me right there that, hey, there's a relationship between this website and the real Netflix.com. So I can look at that to say, okay, and I can see all the other subdomains like dvd.netflix.com is also going there. So this is pretty cool that we can now look at this really quickly and start to say, I have like 3 or 4 things that are saying that this is pretty much legitimate. The other thing is I can look at like open source intelligence. So if I take a look at this, a lot of this is like GitHub and different things. This is actually some code that they use, that they put out on GitHub for how they run their stuff. So this is legitimate. So this to me looks very legitimate. So now if we go and run the other one, Ken, so let's go through this one together. So immediately my analyst insights telling me something. It's saying, hey, it's blacklisted. It's only been registered for the last 6 days.
Yeah.
So those are some red flags right there, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and now if we take a look at the location, I think it's Malaysia, okay? And so it doesn't really make sense that Netflix would have hosting there right now, streaming from there. So I'll look at the WHOIS records. We'll see if we get anything out of this. It's privacy protected, so I'm not really seeing anything here, okay? I see some subdomains. Okay, so I see 3 different types of subdomains, okay? Let's look at components. So when I look at websites, typically you might see hundreds of components associated with something big. And if I only see 1 or 2 or 3, to me that might be suspicious. Doesn't mean it's bad, it's just suspicious because, you know, the threat actor might have to set that up or might have to maintain it or pay for it. So they're going to do the bare minimum to get their job done to steal your information. So so when I see very limited amounts of those, that's to me is something that's scary, okay? Now, if we look at the host pairs, what's strange is the first one that we looked at, this assets.nflxext.com, this website that we're looking at is actually reaching out to that. So it's pulling content from there. So the one that we're searching to see which one's legitimate or not is actually reaching out to the first one that we looked at.
Yeah.
And we also have tags here. So I want to take this one step further with you, okay?
Okay.
So RiskIQ can do, we have all that linked relational data together. So let's look at resolutions now. So this is a suspicious IP address in Malaysia. So now let's expand our investigation and let's see if there's any other related stuff coming from this IP address. And there's 2 ways that we can do it. If you click on it, it just takes you there, okay? So if I click on it, it just immediately takes you there and it shows you the breadcrumb of where you came from, okay? I don't like to do it that way. What I like to do is I right click and open it in a new tab. And the reason for that is when you're doing an investigation, Ken, you might go down a branch and then it dead ends. And then you have to go back to the trunk and go down another branch. So by me having the tabs open, I can immediately be able to jump back to any point. And at any point in time, if I'm using Chrome, for example, I can come up here and I can bookmark all the tabs. So then I can save my entire investigation, everything I looked at, and I can have it all together, okay? So I like to do that. The other thing that you can do is you can create a project. So I can start it from here or from any artifact. So from here, I can say, let's create a new project. So when I create this project, this gives me a way, it's like a running query in the system all the time. So if you're a free community user, we allow you to create one private project or up to like 100 public projects that everybody can see. So the thing is if you're doing an investigation, it's very important to look at the visibility. If it's community, it means everyone can see it, including the bad guys. If it's a team project, it's everybody in your organization if you have the paid version. And if it's an analyst project, it's only for you to see. So if you're investigating somebody at your own company, for example, you might want to keep that as an analyst project, okay? The nice thing about this is that I can add people as a collaborator. So anyone, free or paid, that is in the system, I can add their email address, and now they get access to this project. So you can collaborate with people outside your organization, okay? So let's do this one, Netflix example. Okay, so I can also add tags. So when I submit this now, you'll notice that I get this artifact there. And then if I refresh this, you'll notice that there's a new project will show up, okay? So I can see this at any time. So if I went into here and I looked at this, I can now see a project history, who added it. So if I'm collaborating with multiple people, who added this part of the investigation, what happened, I have that entire history. And then as things change, let's say a new domain is associated with that IP, I'll get an alert. And this project will have that information in here, so I can investigate and see if I want to add it to my project. So if you ever close out an investigation, this is a good way for it to constantly look to see if anything's changed since the last time you looked at it. So that's why I wanted to bring it up to you, Ken.
Okay.
Okay. So Ken, if we look at the resolutions, you might have it on your screen right now as well, loaded. We'll click on the resolutions button, and now I'll see that IP address. We'll see all the domains associated with it. So if I take a look, we're already tagging some of this as phishing. So there's some malicious behavior with this. So this kind of looks kind of strange. So what I want to do is, this is a bigger example than just going after Netflix. So if we opened up, I'm going to go back real quick, and I want to show you what this looks like. I want to show you this example. So I'm copying this domain, okay? Just going to copy it, and I'm going to open up a new tab to the right, and I'm going to type in URL scan.io, okay? So because things come and go so often, if we run a scan right now to go look at the website, it might be down. It might have been changed. So I want to see how it looked like in history. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to search, and I am going to put in that domain name in there. And when I do that, I see one from 4 days ago, okay? When I look at that now, okay, and I look at the screenshot, it's showing me, oh, Netflix, my payment has declined. Restart your membership. So this is a phishing attack, that one that we looked at. So it's telling me, hey, my payment is bad, and they'll probably tell me to put in my new credit card information. So this is, they're stealing payment card information from Netflix users, okay? So now I want to go through and I want to bring up another example, and I want to go look at it inside of like the tool to see, hey, what other companies are they going after, okay? So if we go back to the list, I'm going to open this up so we can see this list of IPs, and let's go scroll through. So I'm trying to show you some techniques that you can use. So as I'm coming down, I'm going to go over here to 25, and I'm going to change this to 500. there's over 1,452 associated with this one IP address. Okay, so here's another Netflix one that was just there. Let me see. I'm going to scroll down. Here's some more Netflix attacks. Okay, and there was one that in particular I saw earlier that I had flagged. Let's see, combank-cancel.net. So let me see if I can find that one. So I did a Command F. So here's combank. So there's 9 of them here. Transfer, there's one for transfer. Combank. So let me bring this, I'll just copy this one and put it in here. So I'll throw it in the chat so you can find it quickly. So we'll look at this one. This was from that list. So here's that IP address again in Malaysia. The WHOIS information, we'll take a look to see if it's different. Kuala Lumpur, it's been really registered in Malaysia. And if we look at the subdomains, I have all of these new subdomains associated with it. And if I go out and I do that same sort of search with URL scan.io, I can see that they're going after payment information. They're going after banking information now. So this one phishing attack, this is a way for you to find the latest one, for example, just by going to this list and looking at the last day that we saw it. So I'm scrolling back up to the top. Sorry about that. So if you look here, you'll see a first and a last seen. So you can see that this Netflix one was seen on 4/26, which was yesterday. Okay, and RiskIQ and in this case, Alien Vault had passive DNS information for this that associated that IP address with that domain. So what's really cool about this is a way for you to take these examples, and if you're constantly want to keep your skills up, I can then go to this list and find a new one and do it. So the next what I'm going to do is the same type of attack against the same Netflix one, but it's a different way that they attack them. And I want to show this one to you because it's pretty cool. So what I'm doing right now is I just sent out a new one. And if we search for groupsnetflixpay.com, okay, this particular one isn't active right now, but what they did was pretty cool. And your organizations generally will not be able to stop this type of an attack. And I want to go through it and I want to explain it to you. So remember I told you about components that if it's very few components, it's a red flag, it's suspicious.
Yep.
See this AES Chris Vaness? Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to clean out some of my tabs and I'm going to copy this. I want to copy what this is and I'm just going to search for it because I'm not familiar with it. AES Chris Vaness, the first one. So if we take a look at this guy created an AES and SHA cryptographic function in JavaScript. So JavaScript executes on the client. So what these threat actors are doing are encoding the phishing site with this AES Chris Vaness JavaScript. So it goes through your content filters at your organizations, it goes through your firewalls, it goes through everything, and it gets to the client, and at the client it executes. So it goes through and it bypasses all of your security and it gets to the end user. And if the end user isn't educated enough, they'll get compromised, okay? And they might fall for this attack. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to do a query to find all of the things that are looking for this particular component. And about 95% to 99% are all phishing attacks. So then you can keep your skills up and do what we did with VirusTotal, URL Scan.io, to be able to go through and investigate these real live current attacks. So if I click on this AES Chris Vaness, it's now going to show me every website that's using this. And you might see some legitimate websites here, like real banks. And the reason for that is when the code is pulling stuff in, sometimes we will tag the real legitimate site saying, hey, we saw this AS Chris Finesse because it's so integrated with the threat actor. It kind of merges together. So if we take a look at what like Verizon Wireless, they're not running this AS Chris Finesse, but there's probably attacks against them that are showing that. And if we look at the host pairs, we'll be able to see those links. But I want to just bring one. Let's just find one. Here, I'm just going to copy this. So if I copy this and we go out to URL scan.io, and I'm going to do a search, and I'm going to look for this, and let's see if we see anything. There's nothing submitted. So let's go to URL scan.io and let's run a query of this. While this is running, I'm going to come back and let's click on it. Okay. So let's see if this is legitimate or not. I don't know. So if we look at the who has records, let's see. Organizations Bank of America. Okay. So this is actually, this could be legitimate, but if we look at the host pairs, we will be able to see if there's any thing that might be like linking to it. So this one might not be a good one. Let's go back. Let me get another one. Okay, let's do. I'll show 500 and we'll grab one. We'll look for a typo squatted domain, a domain that looks legitimate, but it's not. So for example, if it was netflix.com - something else.xyz. Let's see. Okay, let's try this one. Okay, Czechoslovakia looks like. Okay. Let's see. We'll grab the domain. Copy this. We'll look at the host pairs. We'll see how it's linking to Google Analytics, online domain tools. Here, let me do this real quick. I want to make sure I get a good query. Here. Yeah. Sometimes when you look at real stuff, it's hard to find good examples. I'm trying to get you something that we'll spend another minute or two in here.
Okay.
Let's see. And Carolyn, if you see one that stands out, let me know. Carolyn's one of our solution architects that answering questions.
Will do.
Okay, one last one. We'll look here. Spend another minute, then we'll jump to the next one. Here's one. PayPal XYZ. So if we look, we can look at the real place and we can see, hey, it's going to PayPal objects. There are 3 components that are listed here, Apache, PHP, and AS Chris Finesse. And if I take this and we copy it and we go to the URL scan.io, let's do a search and let's look for this. Failed, 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 and then 17 days ago we had one that worked. So let's take a look at it. And here it is. So this one is phishing PayPal, and here's an example of it. So if we went back into here, if I looked at the resolutions, I could go through and say, okay, 17 days ago, it was happening. So if I went back to this IP address, I can look to see, hey, is this IP address also hosting other bad things? And so I could expand my investigation, look at those. So I wanted to show you some ways that you can increase your skills to look for these bad things. So Ken, any questions on anything that you saw?
Actually, no question pertaining to this, but I raised a question earlier on in the chat. There was an investigation I was carrying out in one of the malicious IPs, and when I ran it on URL scan, it came back as a safe. But when I ran it on a separate scan on CrowdStrike, it gave me malicious. So I was wondering. Why does Google Safe web browser say it's safe, whereas that particular IP address was malicious?
So that's a great question. So I have an example that we're going to do with a payment card skimmer where that exact same thing happened. And what happens is sometimes when Google looks at something, it might be not looking at the code, the client-side code execution. So for example, CrowdStrike has endpoint protection where they see what happens on the client. So they'll see activity that the website might not be displaying on the web. So that's why there might be some differences there. But then CrowdStrike can say, hey, it's blacklisted, and then update Google, and Google can take care of it. But the next one that we're going to do with the payment card skimmer, Google never blocked it as bad, but it was hosting payment card skimming software. So that's, I have an example that's the exact same thing that you're talking about, the next one that we're going to do, Ken. So, okay. So I'll go through it right now. So Ken, what I'm going to do is we're going to mute you. And is there anybody else that wants to do the next one? I want to give more people the opportunity to get an extended promo code and make this more interactive. So please put them to the chat if you would like to volunteer. Anybody, I'm just going to close out my my tabs, and I'm gonna get ready for the next exercise. Hold on one second. Okay. Just my next door neighbor sounds like he's running an engine or something, so I just texted him to stop what he's doing. The beauties of working from home. So sorry about that. So do we have any volunteer yet, Barrett?
Yeah, Benjamin, we have Corey who's volunteered, and I just opened up his line.
Okay. Hey, Corey.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm amazing. How are you?
I'm doing great. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just going to do something quick. I'm just getting prepared for this. Okay. Give me a quick second.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say, kind of while you're doing that, like I think this is really interesting here. You're walking through that and showing different investigative methods and just thinking outside of just our the RiskIQ platform itself to answer investigative questions. I think those techniques are not always obvious what path to follow, and so I find that very interesting. I do have a couple questions, but I'll just save them until you kind of we go through the next one because I think they apply to that as well.
Okay, perfect. Hey, and while we're doing this, Barrett, can we run some poll questions while I'm getting everything loaded up?
Yes,
I'd like to find out if you currently use like PassiveTotal. So let's run through all the polls real quick while I'm getting ready, Barrett.
Poll 1 is currently up.
Okay. Let me do. Okay.
All right, we have a good amount of people respond. Thank you for that. I'm gonna close the poll here in 5 seconds.
Okay, so we have about 71% using it, about 29% first time, so great. So I'll make sure that any nuances or anything that you might want to be aware of, I'll point out, okay? So Barrett, can we find out, industries where people are working?
Yes, absolutely. Give me one.
Awesome. I love these polls. I can see them as people are answering, so it's really neat to see the results coming in. Okay, so we have about 63% are threat analysts, 11% are incident responders, 6% do vulnerability management, and 4% do pen testing. So I'll really make sure I hit the exposed services to show the pen testers the new functionality and the paid security professional version. Okay, and then Barrett, what's the next poll question? I'd like to know if they use the free or paid version, and then if they use CrowdStrike.
Sounds good. Launching that now.
Okay, perfect. So we're about 60-40. So 60 use the free and about 40% use the paid version. Wonderful. And then I want to know if somebody uses CrowdStrike or another EDR solution. Okay, perfect. Okay, so we have about 29% use CrowdStrike, 46% don't, but 25% of those use another EDR solution. Great, so when I go through and I show you the capabilities, you'll see what's capable of getting that inside view along with the outside view. Okay, so what was your name again? That's unmuted to help me out on this one.
It's Corey.
Oh, hi, Corey. So Corey, what we're going to do here is we're going to walk through a scenario that is typical to a lot of organizations. So in this scenario, the head of marketing got a call from the financial institution, and after the fraud investigator verified the real transactions, they got to the one where the last one was used, which was this www.almamaterstore.in. And they mentioned, hey, they think it's a credit card skimming attack. So what I'd like you to help me with is that we want to go through to say, okay, is this alma mater store compromised? If the website was compromised, how do we know? And what evidence do we have that there's compromise for this? And then if you determine the site was compromised, how do you suspect the website was compromised? I just want to get your opinion and try to see, maybe how we can figure that out.
Okay, I'll give it a shot.
Okay, so I'm going to paste this in. So we're going to do this search for almamaterstore.com. So just going to grab that real quick. And I'm going to paste that in. So Corey, you can click on this. The other thing I'm going to do is we're going to do the Google transparency search. So this is what Ken was mentioning, was a way for you to go type in a website and see if it's on the blacklist for Google. if somebody's notified them, hey, this is bad, or they've determined it was bad.
Quick question, and I apologize for interrupting. Is any of that, are any of those OSINT checks that you're going and doing manually built into this at all to pivot from?
Yeah, so we actually will show, hey, if it's blacklisted or not. That's in that Analyst Insights that when we go in and we do the search, the Analyst Insight will show up and say, hey, is it good or bad? So the typical types of questions that you would get would show up. So this was blacklisted 2 months ago, for example. So we do that check for you, but I'm just trying to show people that maybe don't have this capability because they're not using the paid version to see how you can check yourself. So
yeah, and I really, again, to reiterate that, I really appreciate you doing that, because that's, it shows that like all the answers don't have to live in a single thing, and it's really good to go out and get all the context you can. So that's good.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and what I'm trying to do is I'm not even using all of our tools, because this is real world. This is what you have to do, what you live and breathe and do as a living. You don't sometimes rely upon the same tool. You might need to look at a different point of view. Just like Ken goes, one tool said that it was bad and one tool said it was good.
Yeah, that was a good point. Yeah.
And that's why I say, hey, you need those 3 good, solid analytical leads, because you can't be everywhere all the time. And with that, there might be some gaps. But if 2 things say it's bad, then it's probably bad, out of 3. So it gives you it gives you the wisdom to be able to make a good decision. We're trying to give you all the information you can have at one point in time to make a good decision. Hindsight's 20/20, but we're trying to give you all that data up front, so then you always have as much information as possible. So are you ready?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, so Google Safe Browsing says it's okay, but it wasn't okay. When I first did this and I first created it, it was showing up good, but it wasn't good. And the reason is because of a credit card skimmer. So if we wanted to go out and say, hey, what are some common credit card skimmer attacks on online retailers? There's one from RiskIQ. So if we search on this, it takes you to our website where we talk about what a credit card skimmer is. And what this particular thing is that when somebody goes to a form, a payment card form, so it's on the workstation, so the client side. So when everything downloads, the website renders on the client, a piece of code runs that monitors the inputs of forms. So when I put in my name, my address, my billing information, my credit card information, that secret code on the back, it waits for that. And when you submit, it sends it to the real website and the transaction goes through, but then it makes a copy of it and it sends that copy off to a third party. So the company that gets compromised doesn't know that anything ever happened. They never see the traffic. It's going from the workstation or the laptop or the mobile device of the person directly to the threat actor. So it's hard to detect if you're not acting like a user. But as we go out and we gather the data, we gather like a user. So we see all those things coming in from all the different places, render it, and analyze it from the perspective of the user. And that's what makes us unique.
So real quick, you said this was from RiskIQ, and I mean, obviously you guys have a write-up on it. And the way I understand Magecart is this came out of the RiskIQ threat like your internal research.
Yes.
Labs? Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So what we had detected this a long time ago and started seeing that, hey, people were, it was Magento. They were targeting payment card checkouts, and a vulnerability existed in that software where somebody can go in and put in a piece of code, and then when it came down to the machine, it would take that information and send it out to the third party. And then we saw the threat actors evolve where instead of going and hitting individual websites, they would go hit the payment card processing company. So then when you did the checkout and you're using, I think it was a bento, they would now download the bad code from the real good website, and then people would be infected and would do it. So there's like 13, 14 different threat actors that we're currently tracking. There was a I think it was Singapore, or in that part of the world, there was one arrest over this, but it's still ongoing. And with COVID, people doing their stimulus checks, payments from government, we see this like exploding. So we even have a COVID report that goes through and talks about it. But I want to walk through this with you and show you how you can, now that you have this knowledge that, hey, something happened from your organization, and you as a threat investigator are going to walk through this this investigation using RiskIQ and the other tools to find out what happened and why marketing got popped. So let's walk through it together.
Well, they probably clicked links. That's probably what happened. Case closed.
Well, in this particular case, it was in the checkout. It was in the checkout. So we'll go through and I'll show you. So it's pretty cool. So by looking at this is a legitimate website. And if I brought it up, if I just wanted to show you the picture of it, it's a company in India, and what they do is they will put your logo on merchandise, which marketing gives out all the time at trade shows that we all see. So really good pricing, but they didn't do their patching correctly, and they got popped. So let's go through and walk it. So if we take a look here, we know that it's a piece of JavaScript that ran where they skimmed the information from the client. So inside of host pairs, okay, we have the ability to look at what came and what went out. And on the left-hand side, if you notice here, there's checkboxes and X's. If I click on the checkbox, it will filter the results to just show me those things. If I click on the X, it will remove it from the list. So we know it's a script. So I'm going to click on the little green checkbox.
So real quick, and how do we know that that's how we've, I mean, just in due course of our investigation, we know it's a script now, or because of the Magecart, the credit card skimmer research that you were doing, that's how we, this
particular case, the way that the scenario I wrote it up was, you know that your credit card got stolen, and the credit card company, the payment card company says, hey, it's probably a credit card skimmer. And when you looked at that, reading those pages says, hey, it's probably Magecart, and that's one of the most popular ones, and it's delivered through a JavaScript script that gets run on the local machine. So I want to look at scripts that are being served up from the website to see what's there, and if we can find something that looks suspicious. So if you go through this list, there's 27 here, so I'm going to expand this to 50. Let's start going through this list and see if anything stands out as potentially bad. So I see here Google Tag Manager. Okay, that's legit. Google Analytics, Connect Up Facebook, Alma Mater Store. Okay, let's see. Okay. Do you see this one, Corey? What is that one?
It looks like.
Let me zoom in.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. Okay, can you see that now?
Yeah. So yeah, it looks like somebody bought a val twice, and so.
So it's Google TEG Manager instead of Tag Manager. So it's a type of squatted domain.
Yeah, and so how do we know which one's legit? I can make an assumption, right? The tag is not legit, but
TEG is not legit. So that's a suspicious one. And it was during the time that your credit card was stolen. So now let's investigate this. Okay. So now that we know that, hey, potentially this is a bad one, let's take a look. So if we went through and I looked at subdomains, that's all fine. So let's go and run this particular one. So if I right click and open this up in another tab, okay? So now I'm gonna see Google Tag Manager, and it's been blacklisted 2 months ago, okay? It's still up there, okay? But let's look at the host pairs. And the reason why I'm looking at the host pairs now that I ran Google Tag Manager is if this one is bad, we can now see who else has been compromised in the past or is compromised now. Okay, so
just so I'm clear, you're saying that now that we've identified that is, that's something malicious or whatever, we can pivot on that and then see who else. So, and then I could use that internally to go hunt for people who may have been interacting with these other sites, right?
Right. So for example, here's the alma mater store, okay, listed. And what was happening is this Google TEG manager was sending data to the parent, okay, was pulling this data in, okay?
Oh,
so this is where when you go to this page, this comes from here and goes to the user. So this has been linked to that one now. But Healing Basket also had that, okay? And if we look at the dates, so from August 9th, 2019, and they cleared this up on April 8th, 2020. So in this particular case, we've notified them many times, and they never cleaned it. And a couple times they cleaned it, but then they never patched the vulnerability, and it just came back on.
So, okay, so when you say notification, and I'm really sorry for some of these questions, but RiskIQ, when this is identified, customer or not, you reach out and say, hey, we think you're participating in this, in this malware family or just whatever. Okay.
Yes, because we want to help the community, and if we find something bad, we're not going to say, oh, you're not a customer, we're not going to help you. No. We're here to help you and to help help all the organizations. So if we find something bad on your site, we're going to tell you, and we're going to help you get it off there to make the internet better and to take these guys offline. We don't want them to be around. So that's our purpose, is to help them. So but to be able to do this effectively, you really need to be able to monitor it all the time, because if you're relying on a third party for something and they update their code and you're not checking it, and they maybe change 2 or 3 times a day, you're never going to know if there's something bad or not. But we can have it automated that can look and check those things, and if there's something obfuscated or something malicious, we can alert you. So that's outside of PassiveTotal. But so I'm showing you in the investigation tool, but we have another tool that automates this whole process for you.
So as I'm sitting here watching you go through this, and like I'm just kind of clicking around and trying to keep up with just the speed at what you're doing, because like I can tell you're like, this is really cool to watch you flow through this and then talk through it. It's just really neat. But if I want to, okay, so I started this, I headed down the path, and as the IR person, and I'm trying to answer these questions as I'm doing my investigation. Can I put, and I put this question in chat, but now seems like the time. Can I put all of this effort and work into its own little container or something? So if I want to give that, okay.
So that's what I mentioned with Ken earlier, is I can make a project. So when I put this into a project,
okay,
I can come in here and I can open that and say, okay, let me open that up in another tab. So when I take a look at this, I can add every individual artifact, like the telephone number, the email address, the domain, the IP address. And if there's a change, like here I have 23 alerts. Hey, Google Tag Manager, the telephone number changed. And we can keep track of this all the time and let you know. So then if you come back a day, a week, a month later to your investigation, you never miss a beat. And then if I want to add something, I can come in here and right click, or I can actually add that to my project. I just click on the little folder and I add it to the project, and now it will be monitored as well.
Okay, cool. No, that's very helpful. I think, I mean, that helped connect the dot there. I think I was missing. So
perfect. So let's go through and let's figure out if there was really Magecart there or not. So if we looked at those host pairs from this, we can see other ones that potentially might have had a problem. So WebM International cleaned it up on the July 16th. American Brewmaster, You Better Fly, cleaned it up in June of 2019. So you can see there's many different ones that were linking to this.
Yeah.
So if we look, we have the project now, but now if we take a look, we look at there's 23 or 22 different subdomains with this, okay? And if we walk through the trackers, for example, let's walk through, there's Facebook, there's even Google Analytics. So let's take a look in the URL scan.io. So if I scan them today, they're not compromised. But if I go back in time, so if I do that search, so I'm just going to grab this, copy, and let's go to search. And if I search for this now, I can get the history. So we had a bunch of people just 8 minutes ago, 15 minutes ago. You're not going to see anything. But if you go far enough in time, you will see that you're going to come to this page. And if we take a look, I'm looking at the HTTP, and if I do a Command F and I look for TEG, here's this Google TEG Manager, the fake one, and I can see the response. So this script is the actual Magecart. This is the actual bad thing. And let me ask you this, because the way that they exfiltrated the data, I don't think anybody would be able to stop this. Okay, so it was pretty ingenious how they exfiltrated the data. So when they gathered the form information, your name, address, telephone number, billing address, credit card information, the code, expiration date, they put some random, they base 64 encoded it, made it random, and asked for an image with that name from the Google TEG Manager. So it was an image file name that they requested from the browser that never gets served.
Yeah, that is clever. Yeah, I mean, so was that name different every time?
Yeah, it was a random number. So like, let's say investigators go there and they go, let me see the server. There's nothing bad on the server, but there is a log file that has requested images that failed, that weren't there. And if you look at those names, there's nothing really special about any of those. So if it first passed, no one would know anything was wrong.
Yeah,
but that's how they're exfiltrating the data out.
Yeah, no, I think that's really cool, and I think that's an important point that you made. Like when you're telling the story as a responder, right? You're telling the story to like, okay, here's what happened, and I've answered your questions, but here's how, like, we couldn't have detected this because of X. Like I think it's just good to see you walk through and explain that, because if I'm running the IR team, what's the next question, or when this gets reported up to leadership, right? Like, well, okay, well, how are we going to detect this in the future? Or just like, all right, firewall guy, why didn't you get this? Or you know what I mean? Right. So I think it's a good piece of context to help tell the story. So that's
and this is like Ken's question, like, why didn't Google flag this as being bad? Because you're asking for an image that doesn't exist. Was that bad? No, that happens all the time.
Right, you're exactly right.
Yeah, so this is why sometimes things can get slipped through and still be out there that are not detected. But that's where we come in, and like your endpoint protection comes in, because when it executes locally, they see this type of thing and go, oh, whoa, wait a second, this isn't right. And that could be why Ken's question that CrowdStrike found something that wasn't found with like Google Safe Browsing, because they're looking for different perspectives. And from the outside perspective, the website looks fine. Everything looks kosher. But from the inside perspective, running from the client's view, like what we do and what the EDR does, it's not. And so that's why it could be different.
So, and I just think this is so much more into answering just those 4 simple questions. I think the level of research that needs to go into this type, like for example, when you showed URL scan.io, and if you wouldn't have, looked past the first page, so to speak, right, and just drilled down and kept going until you answer that question, I think that just shows. I like to hear that, because it's so many times people, oh no, I don't see anything, and I need to answer this and get it off my plate and not give it the time that it needs. So I think if you're able to answer these questions during this demo, even with like me talking or whatever, like it just shows like it doesn't take that much more to get the actual answer. So that's good.
Right, and I'm trying to show you some of the data sets that we have that you might not be familiar with, like host pairs and the certificates and the cookies. All those things came out of investigation. So when we do an investigation, when we're all done, it might take us 6 months, a year sometimes, But then when we're done, we go back and say, was there a single thread that went through that could illuminate the entire thing? And that's how cookies came out. So there was an attack with Turla where they were using satellites to transfer the data. And so they would set up another satellite receiver with legitimate credentials and they would infect somebody. And when the data would go out, they would just have a satellite dish and they would pick it up out of the sky. But they were using cookies. And with that, we were able to eliminate all of their infrastructure with a single cookie. So then we went back in time and created that full data set going back for the entire time that we had data, 10 years. So then anybody else that comes up that is related to all that infrastructure, it's immediately illuminated. So that's why we always say it's illuminated and RiskIQ Illuminate, because we'll show you these things. We'll help you discover these unknown things you didn't know about and help you investigate the threats that are out there.
Yeah, no, this is like, I don't know. It's very, I haven't spent enough time in you know, PassiveTotal to really, you know, understand, like, you know, because like we have our own processes that, you know, are built around other, including PassiveTotal, but just the community edition. So it's like, I think this really just, it helps me kind of frame how this could be used just at a little bit more robust level than it is right now. So that's good.
So do you mind if I have you stay for the next one?
No, not at all.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through a scenario with you. And I'm logged in as a free user and I'm logged in as a paid user. So what I want to do is I want to run through the scenario like, hey, I'm a free user. I want to read this article, this open source intelligence, and I want to see, does it affect my organization? And I'm going to do that investigation with PassiveTotal, and then I'm going to do the exact same thing, but I'm going to do it with the professional edition, the paid edition. Okay, so you can see the differences that are there. And with the paid edition, I have CrowdStrike installed, so I'm getting inside information. So you can see how your life can be extremely easy. So let's take a look. So
real quick, when did the CrowdStrike? So I might have, maybe I missed the news, or maybe it's been there. It was just being a bad, you know, at keeping up with things. But like, when did the CrowdStrike integration or whatever happen?
It happened about 9 months ago. We did it, I think it was around October timeframe is when we announced it, and then it went live around December. It went live where we actually had customers on there. But we've been working on this a while with them. So we're actually taking their data. So if you query for something in PassiveTotal, we run API queries against their threat intel and their endpoint to bring that data back and show you the hits on what you searched in PassiveTotal. So the neat thing about it is things change all the time. So with PassiveTotal and the data that we have, we infrastructure chain it, and we might have things that the threat intel team at CrowdStrike didn't have at the time, for example. So then when they publish or they show something's bad, a new thing might pop up tomorrow. Right. And we have that capability of linking it together to say, oh, it's related, just like how we saw with the host pairs. But then we can show you the traffic that came from the inside to say, hey, you need to go take a look at these machines. Intel hasn't got the update yet, but hey, it's part of this attack, so you need to go remediate so you can get it out. So that's kind of how it works. So I want to walk through that scenario with you, okay?
Okay, cool.
So if we take a look at an article, sometimes they publish IOCs. And what we're going to focus on are these Ocean Lotus backdoors, okay? So I have 3 different backdoors. So it could be IP, it could be related to domains, okay? So if we take a look at that, as I go through, I look it over and I say, okay, where in the world is it located? What domains are associated with? So I can see all the IPs that were listed, what domains were associated with this threat actor. If I take a look here, I can see it's Japan, Hong Kong, it was in Russia, it was in Italy. So I'm just looking at this and going, okay, I see some of this information, but I don't see how this relates to me, or if I should be worried about this. So what usually happens at organizations is somebody up, CEO, CISO, will come up and say, hey, I just read this article. Can you tell me if we're okay about this?
No, that never happens. That never happens.
So that used to happen to me all the time. And they go, okay, Benjamin, do we? And you would have to say, oh, there was a vulnerability. Let me see if I have this vulnerability anywhere in my organization. And if so, has it been patched? When is it scheduled to be patched? Are we testing? Or if there's a command and control, then I have to go look at the firewall logs, look at NetFlow traffic, try to figure out if there's things going there, or looking at my SIM, or I set up a rule to say, if I see traffic, alert me. Or I'm looking at my EDR to say, do I see any domain, anybody went to these domains? So it's a lot of work.
Yeah, yes, and like just for what it's worth, like I really like the fact that you're using Ocean Lotus or APT32 in here, because that has shown up in some recent reports, and so those questions actually are trickling in for me. So this is actually pretty awesome.
I try to pick things that are current. So like almost every threat hunting workshop I do, I have new examples, or I show you how to take the old one and get something new so you can continue with it. So let's walk through now if I did the same thing, but I have the integration in place, okay? So here's the same article. So I'm just logged in now with my enterprise credentials. So immediately, I get some additional information that you normally don't see. So with the analyst insights, I see the RiskIQ analyst insights. It's been blacklisted, but I'm also getting the threat intel from CrowdStrike. So that comes right away. So that tells me right now, hey, it's a targeted attack. It's high confidence. The IP address is actor controlled, and it's a command and control. So I didn't have that on the previous one, but now I know, okay, hey, this is bad. Okay.
So and sorry to interrupt. I really am. I just a question about this taxonomy or these tags or whatever. Earlier, or just at the beginning, you'd mentioned something about just your API. And so does all that CrowdStrike integration also? I mean, is the API exposing that as well?
So RiskIQ has an API that you can use with other tools to pull the data out from RiskIQ and take it in there. And then what we're doing in this particular case is we're using the CrowdStrike APIs, the Intel and the Endpoint API, the two separate APIs, to pull that data and bring it into PassiveTotal. So from our console, you can see a full view. And very soon, we're hopeful that it will go both directions. Right from here, I can know that this is a bad IP address. Even though RiskIQ said, hey, it's blacklisted, I get some more context around it. But if you notice, I have a CrowdStrike tab now. So by me clicking on this tab, I can see I had a desktop that actually communicated with that IP address. So from that article, I now know internally, I have something I need to clean up, or I need to go talk to somebody and say, what happened? Why was your machine reaching out to this one? Did it get stopped? Did you try to go there, but it was stopped? So maybe you have some infection on there, or there was some code that tried to execute. CrowdStrike might have blocked it because it's protected, but if I have this one, I might have others. Or if I pivot around and expand my investigation, I might see things I didn't know that were there. So maybe there's some more infrastructure that just came online that we're communicating to that's not being blocked by the endpoint protection. So so I need to make sure. So this will give me the ability to fully investigate inside with this extra intelligence that might not be readily available to the threat analysts at the EDR company right at the time.
Yeah, and I gotta say that is incredible to answer that question so quickly, and then being able to get the answer and then really then from there, understanding who those people are, right? And just that shortens the time to just getting an answer and then, you know, taking this down or whatever the case needs to be. But
right. So if you take a look now at the first domain, I now know, hey, the actor is Ocean Buffalo. That's what CrowdStrike has called them. It's high confidence and it's part of the command and control kill chain. And once again, I have the CrowdStrike tab, and I can see that that machine reached out 3 times on the 27th.
yeah.
Okay, and as I go through, and now I'm looking at the next indicator, it's in Hong Kong. Hey, it's been blacklisted. No internal machine went there. Okay, great. And then looking at this domain, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times tried to reach out. So now I'm going, oh, okay, so this thing is really actively trying to communicate to these command and controls. And I have another one, and let's look one more time. So all 3 command and controls it's trying to hit. So tells me, hey, I need to look at that machine and do some thorough investigation. So does it affect my organization? Yeah, it does. And did it take me a lot of time and a lot of effort? No, because you get visibility inside and out now. We have the outside perspective, and your EDR has the inside protected and has that knowledge, and then we merge them together to give you that full view.
Yeah, no, this really, you know, back to the whole concept of as much context as you can get to help tell the story as to what's going on. I think this, just that ability to do it in here without just like going into the other tools or even leaning on, you know, maybe any source stuff that you have in place. Like it just really changes. I don't know, just it changes how I see using this to answer those questions, because I already have a process to answer those questions. So I like it's cool. This integration is just really cool. I'd like to know more about it.
Yeah, we'll send you some information about it. So the thing about this is that speed is everything. And when you have a crisis or have an issue, you need to make a decision that's accurate, but also speedy. So you need to make sure that you're protected, things are blocked, and that you've done the full investigation to clean up any issues that you might have. And when you do your investigation, you can't use tools that are going directly to the threat, because you can get infected, or they know that you're investigating them and then they change.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
You have to play it smart.
Yeah, so I think that's such an important point about, you know, just all of this has been, you know, it's all been passive, right? You're asking questions of data, and you're not asking questions of the site itself. And I do think, you know, that just, I don't know, just even me personally working with junior analysts during stuff like this, if you don't consciously think about that investigative method isn't always apparent. So I think that's a really important point that you just made.
And you bring up a good point. So by using the enterprise products, we up level the entire organization, from the seasoned threat investigator to the junior person, because if you immediately know that there's an issue and it's the junior person, they know, okay, I now need to escalate, I need to do some more triage, I need to figure out the full scope, I'm going to create a project, and then I'm going to get additional people to look at it. So it will up level the entire organization. And that's what we're trying to do, and to speed that up, so then it's not everything is thrown over the fence to the senior analyst to look at where they might miss something. The junior person can take action and go, oh no, this is bad. I'm gonna go take that machine offline, and we're gonna go and re-image it or investigate it further.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it. I think that is such an important point, and really, I don't know. I'm glad to hear that it's being mentioned, and because there's a lot of quote unquote threat hunting workshops that don't, frame things like that. I guess it's just a little different. So it's just good.
So I want to thank you. So we're going to put you back on mute, and then I'm going to go start talking about some exposed service. So we just announced this like 2 or 3 weeks ago. So I'm going to go through and show you how you can now look at that port data that we had, the services for the longest time, but now it's exposed in the product. Okay, so Corey, thank you so much. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my slides. Barrett, are there any questions that have come up so far while I'm bringing that back up?
Yeah, there've been a lot of good questions. Caroline's been answering them, has answered pretty much all of them in chat as
Okay.
we've been going. So keep popping questions in there. But
Yeah, here's one that I missed though, because I was answering questions. Back in your previous exercise, where did the IP address 88.150.138.77 come from?
Was that the which one? Which exercise was that?
I think it was the one you just did. It was
okay.
The tab that was right next to your hiding in plain sight tab.
Okay, so in the open source intelligence, in the article, they actually have the IP address listed right here. So it's this IP address in their diagram, their Maltego diagram.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Good question. Thank you. I didn't mention that. I'm sorry. This is why I like to make it interactive. Have a question, we're going to answer it right away. So what I like to do is I want to show you the exposed services, and I want to explain why we didn't make this available in the community version. And there's a famous quote. So if you're into comic books, you'll know this one right away. With great power comes great responsibility. Ben Parker, Spider-Man's uncle. Okay. We're scanning the entire internet all the time. And we have the ability for you to click on one thing and see everything. So if I tell you there's a vulnerability that exists somewhere, and you have the ability to click on it and see that vulnerability everywhere in the world, and you're a bad guy, you can now do a lot of harm very quickly. So we're only making this available in the paid version because we vet you. We make sure that you're a real security professional. You're not just a hacker guy going out there to get the software to make your life easier. So the information that I'm going to show you is only in the paid version, but all of you today will be contacted, and we can set you up with the real enterprise version for your organization to test out and run for 30 days or longer if we need to. So you can really kick the tires, see it, and understand the integrations and how it works and the extra capabilities that you get from the free version. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and show you some things that have recently come out that we've all been exposed to because of COVID and working remote. So for example, no one's at the office, everyone's remote. So all of your internal security things that you had, they're not there to protect your organization. You might be VPNing into your organization, you might be using a remote gateway, but you're outside. Everyone's outside now. So now you have to understand more of your attack surface. You need to know where your users are coming from. We have the capability that we can put in all the IP addresses of your users and put that into a map, and you can look at that to see, hey, are they okay or not? What's happening? Is there anything coming bad or is not that you're seeing from the outside perspective that's not good? So if we notice what happened with everyone now having to work from home, the amount of things that like remote desktop gateways, the amount of current visibility, we see over 45,000 different IP addresses, and when we go look at it, it's probably going to be bigger from when I created the slide, that are now active, and there's vulnerabilities out there. So PassiveTotal shows you the view of everything out there, and I can look for my own IPs and look at those. But we have another product called Digital Footprint, and the Digital Footprint will have everything that belongs to you. So we take seed domains and your IPs, and we can immediately show you the entire internet that's yours, maybe some shadow IT that they bought some domains or hosting some stuff that has relationships with you. We can show you that, but then we can show you the rogue stuff, the bad stuff that's impersonating you. But that whole view, we can scan it constantly. We can look to see a third-party JavaScript that you're using for your chat program just got updated, and there's Magecart in there. Or the font that you're using has been tampered with, and now there's something else in there. Or you now have obfuscated JavaScript you're hosting on your own website, and that obfuscated JavaScript has Magecart in it that you wouldn't see if you went and looked at it. So we have that capability. So everything that I'm showing you right now in PassiveTotal that shows you for the world, we have the same view that you can click on and see your own stuff and see if you have that internally with one click. So let's go through and let's look for this remote desktop gateway. So I'll paste it in because there's about 40% of you that have the paid version, so you'll be able to see this. So I'm going to run this query now. Okay. So remember, it was 41,000. There's actually 50,000 Microsoft Remote Desktop Gateways out here. So if I click on one of these, just randomly picking one, you can pick any one you want. If you take a look, there'll be the Services tab. So this is the new thing that shows up. So what this gives you the capability that I can see the banners. So like sometimes you might have a port that's open, and you go, hey, that port is generally associated with SSH. But you might have, maybe someone switched the port number, but the banner might say, hey, it's SSH. So here we see SSH drop bear. So I know that this is SSH, it's on port 22, just like what we expect, but you can see that. So we use this port information along with the components that we see when we see things running. And we are able then to say why this thing is running here. So we never used to show you that we had this port data to say, how are you so accurate with what you had under the components? It was a combination of seeing what's installed, what's running, and also this header information that we get from the port scanning. Okay, for the longest time, people thought you only do port 80 and 443. That's a lie. We do over 220 ports, and we change that all the time. We can increase it, decrease it, add new things, but it's always growing, and all that data is stored. Okay, we have years and years and years of it. Okay, so this gives me the capability of knowing, hey, is it open? Is it being filtered? Maybe you have it only responding to certain IPs, for example, or is it closed and it's no longer up? Okay, so this is showing me like the last 2 weeks because things are constantly changing. If I went to a hosting provider and I looked at their IP, might have everything open if we had 10 years of data, but for the last 2 weeks, we're showing you that information in here to give you a perspective of what's there. So if you're a pen tester and you go look at the IP addresses of the client that you're going to go look at, you don't have to scan them. They don't know that you're scanning them. They don't know where you're going to come from. We'll have all that available for you. Okay. I'm going to run another one for you. So Microsoft Remote Desktop. Okay. So it's part of Windows Servers 2000 and newer. So let's run this query. Okay. So I'm going to run this one real fast. And I'm just going to, this is a remote desktop, sorry, picked the wrong one. Here we go. So I'm going to copy this one. I'm going to throw this in the chat so you don't have to type it. Okay. So immediately when it shows up, 17 million IP addresses means the server is accessible through a remote desktop, or it's a computer that has a remote desktop turned on that's out there. So this is pretty significant. Now, a lot of times people know that you're bleeding internal information out when you're running this, and this is accessible directly to the internet. A lot of companies, you'll VPN in, and then you can do remote desktop. So then it protects the systems a little bit more. But let's click one and let's see if I can find one. So I'm just going to click an IP address. Okay, I'm going to go to the services, and here's the encrypted certificate that Microsoft creates when you run this. Now, what you don't know is in the common name, that's the machine name. So if you have a naming convention that you're using to define your assets inside, that's being bled outside. okay? So just be aware of that. So this is types of stuff that you normally don't see unless you're a pen tester and you don't see this all the time. But this is how we're able then to say, you have this version running, you have this port open, you're susceptible to this. So our digital footprint product can be very spot on and show you, hey, does this, are we affected by this or not? So if there's a vulnerability that gets announced, we have the ability to say, this is where you have it, or a third party you rely upon has it. So therefore you're affected by this, because if they get popped, you could get popped. So we have that capability of showing you. So the next one, I'm getting some, we have 10 minutes left. So I'm going to show you 2 or 3 more, and then I'll open up to questions to take some live questions from the audience. So let me show you another one. Okay, AVTech. AVTech is a Taiwanese company that produces video surveillance technology. And this is a common target for attackers. So let's run this query now. So I'm going to come up and run this query. And I'll make all these links available to you. So when we send it out, we'll make sure you have all the links that I've used today will be in a list for you. Okay, so let me see the AVT. Microsoft. Give me a quick second. Pasting it in. Here we go. So we have over 805,000, okay? And you can see the versions of cameras that they're running. So I'm just gonna pick one. And while I do that, I'm going to copy this, and I'm gonna open that in another tab, and I'm gonna click on it. Okay, 63 services running on this one. 8 servers, 8 type of server stuff. So here's the camera piece, okay? And I'm trying to pick one that might be open to the internet, so that I can show you that these are accessible to everybody. So let's see. Open, I'm going to copy this. I know I'm not supposed to go there directly, but I know it's a camera server. So here is the user where you would log in with the username and password. So highly accurate information, showing you many different services that are open, and the corresponding components that are with those. So I want to make sure that you can use this to look at your organization from an outside perspective to say, this is what I need to do to clean things up, to keep data from being exposed, like naming conventions, or we have vulnerable services that we should put a layer of protection between the remote desktop and the outside world. Let's make a jump point like through a VPN, and from there go different places and not just make it exposed. Or if you're running remote desktop to your PC at home, it's not accessible on the internet as well. You can throw your own IP address in here. If you have the paid version, to look at it to see what ports and services you have there. So all these are the things that I want to make sure that you're aware of to safeguard your information. So with that, that's just a quick view of some of the services that we're looking at. We have hundreds, if not thousands, of different ones that you can look at. If you have any questions, you want to see a demo of PassiveTotal or Enterprise Digital Footprint, email us at success@riskiq.net, or if you have any questions that we don't answer today on the call. So with that, Barrett, let's open up the phone lines for the last 5 minutes and take any questions.
Sounds good. And Benjamin, we've gotten a lot of questions in the past 20 minutes that fall into this category around the CrowdStrike integration and how people enable it. Do they have to pay for it? And yeah, so if you could dive in a little more there.
Well, give me a quick second. So what I'll do is I'm going to log in. So give me a quick second. And let me get my authenticator up and I'll show you. I have to get a code. Five 1 5 1 7. Okay. Okay, so I'm in my CrowdStrike console now. So if you take a look and you go to CrowdStrike App Store, okay? So from inside of here, you'll see a RiskIQ Illuminate. Right here. So if I click on it, I just install it. And once I install it, it will provision your keys, whether you just have Intel or you just have the endpoint protection, or if you have both, into RiskIQ. So if you already have RiskIQ and you're a paid user, then everyone in your organization will immediately start seeing the tab and seeing the data. If you don't and you have a free community user, we will provision a enterprise account for you if you're the admin of the CrowdStrike console, and then you can invite people in your organization to see that data inside of PassiveTotal, and that's all you do.
Awesome. Thanks, Benjamin.
No problem.
Another question around, is PassiveTotal able to monitor for obfuscated puny code for particular domains?
Great question. I don't have the answer for that, but the enterprise product for digital footprint should be able to look for it, but PassiveTotal generally doesn't look for those types of things, I don't think. But we have your question, and I will find a definite answer to you, and we'll email the group that question. I just don't want to give out any wrong information. Carolyn, if you know the answer to that one, if you want to take it, you can. Otherwise, we can answer it offline.
Yeah, I'm in the same camp as you. I know we have that capability when we're detecting for domain infringements and typo squats for a different solution, but whether it's applied to PassiveTotal, I'm not 100% sure. So
I don't think it's in
definitely get back to you.
It's more an investigation tool, not a monitoring tool. That's why we have the digital footprint piece for external threats like domain infringement, phishing, JavaScript, things like that.
Right.
But we have the capability, but it might not be in PassiveTotal.
Okay, thanks, Benjamin. We'll follow up. I think we have time for one more question before we hit the top of the hour here. Question about exposed services. If we have the paid version, where can we see all of our exposed services?
So the exposed services are on IP addresses. So you would have to search your IP address that you have, or the ranges of IP addresses that you have, to see what exposed services that you have. If you have the digital footprint piece, it's built into that to show you everything at once, where you can query it. But the investigation tool for PassiveTotal is a one-by-one type of thing, or so you have to go through the UI to do that. I know that they're adding API queries for that, so you can query it and get that out, because pen testers have asked for that, but I'm not sure if it's available just yet. But I know that they are adding the exposed services API query soon.
Got it. Okay, thanks, Benjamin.
Okay.
That's all the time we have for questions for today. Reach out to success@riskiq.net, like Benjamin shared, with any additional questions or for further conversations, and we can hook you up with a demo, no problem as well. Thank you all for attending. Thank you to Benjamin for a great workshop, and everyone have a great rest of your day. Take care.
Thank you, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.